Madam Chair, trustees, Dr. Bubb. It is a pleasure actually to present this part, although the kids that came up and the principals that presented before me probably could have done some of my data points for me. What you see is that we value learning significantly, and it shows up in lots of ways. I think it also shows that we measure lots of things, and we do that because in the business of school, everything contributes to student learning. So I also want to if you noticed that Amy Larson is here tonight. She is our Director of Data-Driven Response, and I should give her credit for much of what went into the AI policy, her contributions there, and then of course the work that we're doing with measuring really what matters in West Data. So I thought I'd start with a couple of bright spots. So our early literacy data, our kindergarten, I'm going to give you just a couple to kind of tease with the rest of the presentation, but we are very proud of this January proficiency number. Right now, over 82% of our students are scoring proficient at the kindergarten level. There is a time in my career that I remembered that data point seemed unreachable. And now it is really how we do business. So as the Eagle Middle School student said, I loved this so much I wrote it down. She said, "We're so grateful for the work our teachers put in for student learning." This is really the evidence of the work that our teachers have put in, and now this has become the standard in West Data, which is pretty exciting. On the other end of that, this data, ironically, just came out a few weeks ago. It is our graduation rate. There's some things that have to trickle down, and then it is published. Our graduation rate for the spring of the class of 2025 was 89%. I had the pleasure of sharing with a spotlight moment at Meridian High, where for the first time in their history hit 95% of their graduation rate was 95%. Yes, and Brian Murphy and his team celebrated with Jill Lillienkamp, the former principal, and I will tell you what, it was an amazing day at Meridian High. Ironically, these two data points, when I picked them, they were just such bright spots, but they really tell this story, which is the academic story, the beginning to the end. Why I love this picture especially is these were kids who graduated in 2025, and they were mine as kindergartners at Frontier. And I had the privilege of meeting them there, and that is the story of every teacher in West Data, because that's what we're shooting for, that's what success looks like. And so I hope that Amy and I have crafted a story around that that helps you see all of the components that we measure outside of just student outcomes, while student outcomes being, of course, our target. So in teaching and learning, it's the things that we measure are around instruction, curriculum, and assessment for an upward trend in all things. Really, we want to get 1% better every day. That's always our goal. So we monitor through a benchmark system. Most of you are aware of that. You hear that talked about with the IRI. You also hear that talked about with iReady. Our kids were talking about it today, which I always love. That really is progress, monitoring our progress from 3 levels, 3 times a year, fall, winter, spring, from a district level, which we call the satellite data, and then a rooftop level, which is really the school data, and then student by student is called street level data. When we look at that monitoring system, it's beyond just we're checking our system's readiness. Also, are we meeting our goals? Are we hitting the target? It all begins with high quality instruction. And when we look at how we are identifying our priorities and are we seeing evidence of that in our schools. So this year, as you know, we've spoke about before, increasing student clarity in learning, discourse, and then explicit instruction in math and in K2 phonics. When we talk about explicit instruction, what's important about that, it's really that must-do, must-know concept, that content that students we can't leave to chance. And you're seeing that remnant in our data. So we measure that too. We measure how many teachers we're training. We measure how systematically that's put into place. So K2, 100% of our K2 teachers have been trained in explicit systematic phonics instruction. We believe that that is contributing significantly to our results right now. When you look at what those numbers are, a small and mighty team started last year, and recently over 400. I think our recent number is 444, but I saw someone getting trained the other day who is newly hired, so we might be at 445. Again, that's a systematic approach to professional learning, not just leaving that to chance. The same with 3 through 12 mathematics. Again, explicit instruction through direct modeling. Currently, we're at about 90% of teachers being trained in this, and that equals about 585 of 3rd through 12. So again, a systematic approach, then measuring our progress to make sure we're hitting it, and then finally, what does implementation look like? In this case, the teaching and learning team have been on multiple visits, actually over about 600 classroom visits. Again, that is directors of instruction, coordinators, consultants, and really what we're looking at are the strategies that we're invested in, are they being implemented? Are they doable for teachers? Can they take a training and the next day apply it? I will tell you, rarely have I been so impressed with our teachers showing up for something and the next day walking into their room, sometimes with a small army, and watching them try it. That's how we get better. And I can, with confidence, say at 100% of our schools, all 58, our priorities are being implemented, and it's observable in every school at some level. And now the development starts. So that gets us to more student outcomes, which again is the data part of this presentation, but the story is so important to all of the other things also. So K-3 literacy, again, that's a benchmark assessment, so we look at that at the district level, how are we performing, school level, and then of course at the student level. So currently K through 3, we are at 79% plus proficient. That means almost 80% of our kids are scoring proficient already. Again, we think the systematic approach to instruction is what is lending to those consistent results, is that it is guaranteed. It happens in every school every day across West Ada, and that is quite a feat. And we are pretty proud of our teachers for that, because that only happens when teachers see something good for kids and are willing to change their practice. That's it. That's what it takes, is for somebody to say the results matter. Because when we live in that 80 or almost 80, we don't live there very long. It's really the 20% that we're always chasing. Same with graduation rate. Benchmark, you heard about iReady today. That is, again, a systems check. It gets down to the student level, but we always want to make sure that our system, we're providing teachers the resources and support. District-wide, we're looking for upward trends. The bottom bar is the first assessment kids took at the beginning of the year. The top bar is the second one they took mid-year. We'll have a third one at the end of the year. Just a quick tip, you want less red and more green. So we're making good progress in that area. And again, we look at it at the district level from a systems. What do we need to make sure we're ensuring? What are the gaps and overlaps? And then at the teams at the individual levels. Lastly is high school, which has been an interesting process for this year. Not that it's new, because our high schools have been tracking this information, but one thing that we decided as a district system, that we would really look at the at-risk factors of track to graduate. Because when we get to the high school level, our measure of success is really, at the end of 4 years, do they walk across the stage and receive their diploma? So we know that there's at-risk factors that contribute to a decrease in maybe engagement or an increase in engagement. And those are pretty predictable. It's grades, attendance and tardies, and discipline incidents. So what we see happen at the grade level is that at the district level, we're monitoring Ds and Fs as part of a benchmark system for fall, winter, and spring. There was some reports today that we are probably at a record low in terms of that, which means that we're responding effectively through our systems. Some of that is happening, most of that happens at the building level. They are monitoring and responding with interventions, with additional support, advisory times, individual plans, and then that progress monitoring is around skill level, also around their completion level. But again, all of those things factor in, and as a district level, we're always looking to make upward trends, that high quality instruction is lending to more. So you can see how the picture kind of completes that full circle, which is pretty important to us. I think our high schools should also be credited for the amount of work that they do around this, is that when you walk into a high school and you talk to a counseling secretary or an administrator of their juniors and seniors or the registrar, they know which kids, which credits, who's on track, who's not, by name, by face. I mean, we know that work is happening, and then as a district system, how do we make sure it's not just pockets of excellence? How do we make sure that every school is at least at 95%? So that's the work that we're always trying to do. And then, of course, attendance. So currently, we are on an overall average. High school attendance has increased from last year at this time. We always, again, want an upward trend. I hesitate to give you the percentage, but I will. It's just under 1% improvement. But what's interesting about that is that might not sound very impressive, and that data is actually pretty impressive because when you look at our high school enrollment numbers, on average, that means 91 more high school students are present in their classes at school every day. So we really have to pull from that data and then look at opportunities to grow that. So all of those pieces, and Amy is part of that gathering and collecting and sorting and separating, and then her team looking at that, all of those complete our story for us. And it's making sure that those systematic things along the way are taken care of so that all kids have the best shot, clearly. Finally, although it's not in my picture, I felt like I needed to share this data because we're so proud of it. And I think it's part of the academic story that Marcus and I share. Again, do our decisions impact teaching and learning? I think our data indicates that they do. I think our investment in our teachers and the high quality professional learning. And then I think on the academic side of student support, we're always asking the question, are we eliminating barriers? I think we're also asking with CTE, are they ready to launch? And so college and career rated data, this is just another impressive example for first semester. And rumor is that first semester is the slow time, that this really picks up second semester. But when you take a look at that number, the second one especially, 20,000, I'm sorry, that's 20,000, not $20,000. 20,000, over 20,000 dual credits were earned, and that equals in advanced opportunity funds, just West Ada kids, over $1.5 million. That happens through the hard work of our schools, making sure kids and families know what's available to them. The second piece there that I think is worthy of sharing in some of the work that Marcus Myers and his team has done, and also Will Shoemaker, it's really the tracking of CTE certifications, assessment, skill stacking, all of those things. When you look at the national average graduation rate, Will one time shared was over 98% for students enrolled in some sort of CTE pathway. And so I think that gives us a good lens. Currently, 68% of our high school students are enrolled in a CTE course of some sort, and 90% have taken a CTE course in their high school career. So again, that piece of like through our journey of our story, what we measure, what matters, and then are we preparing them to launch? So I know that I took you on a story instead, a little storytelling instead of just flat data, but I hope you could see the big picture, because what we hope to do is start bringing that comparable data back so you can see the upward trend that I'm confident that we'll see when we have consistent data to show that. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
That was amazing. Comments or questions? Okay, oh, I'm sorry. Do you have something? Okay, I didn't want to stop you. No, wow. 4 years I've been here and watched this process really take hold. West Ada has always been, I think, the top level of education. Our kids had such a great experience here, but this is amazing. I mean, to have an individual stand up here and say, I never thought we could reach this level of literacy. I never thought this was possible. Wow. I'm a little bit speechless. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, and thank you for all the hard work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, trustees, Dr. Bubb. I just want to reference too is that I'm lucky enough to get the launch of this. A lot of this work started, it's been going on for years, but the work that Marcus started in academics that I was lucky enough to have the privilege to take over, and then this hardworking team I have is just amazing. We're always looking for how to get that other percent, and the best part of that is our teachers are too. And that's, I wouldn't say unique to education, but I would say that it matters in West Ada. It always matters, and you saw it in our kids tonight too, and I love that so much. So thank you.
Thank you so much.